The Ghost of the Marshall Islands. On January 30th, 2014, on a tiny remote coral atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, two locals looked out at the beach and saw something that shouldn't exist. A man, or what looked like a man, was crawling through the sand. His hair was a matted, sun-bleached mess, his beard reached his chest, and his skin was burnt to a deep, leathery crust. He was shouting in a language they didn't understand, clutching a piece of rotted wood. He had no boat engine, no tools, and no shoes. When the world finally heard his story, they called him a liar. They said it was impossible, but as the layers of the story peeled back, they realized they were looking at the greatest survivor in human history. This is the minute-by-minute account of Jose Salvador Alvarenga's 438 Days Adrift. Chapter 1. The Final Departure. The story begins on November 17, 2012, in the small fishing village of Costa Azul, Mexico. Jose Alvarenga was a man who lived by the tides. He was an immigrant from El Salvador, a tough, seasoned sailor who was known for his ability to find fish when no one else could. That morning, the sky was gray. A massive storm system, was brewing. His regular partner warned him not to go. But Jose was a man of action. He needed the money. He found a young 22-year-old named Ezequiel Córdoba. Ezequiel was a local soccer player, a kid who had never been out in the deep blue. He was terrified of the ocean, but the promise of $50 was enough to get him on the boat. They pushed off in a 25-foot panga, an open fiberglass boat with no cabin and no roof. It was designed for coastal fishing, not for the open sea. They had a motor, a radio with a dying battery, and a GPS that wasn't fully charged. They had no idea that within 24 hours their world would shrink to the size of that 25-foot deck. Chapter 2. The Storm That Never Ended. 75 miles out, the norte hit. It wasn't just rain, it was a wall of water. Waves 30 feet high began to hammer the small boat. For 2 days, the two men did nothing but bail water. If they stopped for even 5 minutes, the boat would fill and sink. Then the engine died. A wave slammed into the back of the boat, drowning the motor and snapping the propeller. Jose grabbed the radio. He managed to shout one last message to his boss. "Come for us. The engine is dead, we are being blown out." The radio hissed and went silent. The battery was dead. To keep the boat from flipping, Jose had to make a choice that would haunt him. He had to dump over 1,000 pounds of freshly caught fish to lighten the load. He watched his entire livelihood sink into the dark water. By the time the storm cleared, they were hundreds of miles from the coast. Mexico was gone, there was nothing but blue. Chapter 3. The Science of Survival. The first week was the hardest. The human body can only go 3 days without water. They had no fresh water. Their tongues began to swell. Their skin began to crack. Jose knew they had to find a source of hydration, or they would be dead before the month was out. They began to catch sea turtles. But they didn't eat the meat. They drank the blood. Turtle blood is salty, but it contains enough hydration to keep the kidneys from failing. It tastes like cold metallic iron. They caught seabirds by sitting perfectly still for hours, waiting for a bird to land on the boat, and then snapping its neck with a lightning-fast movement. What Jose didn't know was that he was caught in the North Equatorial Current. This is a massive conveyor belt of water that moves from Mexico toward Australia. It moves slowly, about 2 miles per hour. He was on a 6,000-mile journey, and there was no way to stop it. Chapter 4. The Death of Ezequiel. 4 months in, the psychological toll became too much for Ezequiel. He wasn't a sailor. He couldn't handle the diet of raw bird meat and turtle blood. One day they caught a bird that had eaten a poisonous sea snake. Ezequiel ate it and became violently ill. He lost his will to live. He stopped eating. He crawled into the small doghouse at the front of the boat and refused to come out. He told Jose, "Promise me you won't eat my body." Jose promised. A few hours later, Ezequiel was gone. For 6 days, Jose lost his mind. He kept the body on the boat. He would talk to it. He would ask Ezequiel how he was feeling. He would answer for him. It was a way to avoid the crushing reality of being alone. Eventually, he realized he was talking to a corpse. He stripped Ezequiel of his clothes, said a prayer, and pushed him into the ocean. Now Jose was truly alone in the largest void on the planet. Chapter 5. The hallucinations in the cargo ship's solitude is a different kind of torture. To keep from going insane, Jose created a schedule. He would walk circles around the boat. He would name the birds that visited him. He began to hallucinate entire meals. He could smell the tortillas and the fried fish of his hometown. He saw cargo ships on the horizon. Over the course of the year, At least 20 massive ships passed him. He would stand on the deck waving his arms, screaming until his throat bled. But these ships are so large and their crews are so far above the water that they never saw the tiny white boat. Each passing ship was a heartbreak that almost killed his spirit. Chapter 6: The Arrival and the Accusations. After 14 months, the boat finally hit a reef. Jose swam to the shore of Ibon Atoll. When he was found, the world didn't believe him. They saw that he was still stout and thought he was a liar. But doctors explained that he was suffering from edema. His body was swollen with fluid because of the massive amounts of salt he had consumed. When he returned to El Salvador, a new nightmare began. Ezekiel's family sued him for $1 million. They accused him of eating Ezekiel to survive. There were no witnesses and the body was gone. Jose had to go through polygraph tests and intense interrogations. Eventually, the science of the ocean currents and the medical evidence proved his story was true. He had simply been stronger, more experienced, and more determined to see his daughter again. The conclusion. The lesson of the Panga Jose Salvador Alvarenga's journey is the longest solo survival at sea. He traveled 6,700 miles in a boat with no engine. Today, he lives in a small house far away from the ocean. He is terrified of the water. He doesn't go near the beach. But his story stands as a monument to what a human being can endure. Most of us give up when life gets slightly uncomfortable. Jose survived 438 days of salt, blood, and silence. He proves that the human heart is the strongest engine ever built.